By Thursday, the air on the farm had shifted, like something unseen was circling us. It wasn't a gust or a breeze, just a pressure, a prickling at the base of my neck that refused to let go. I'd catch myself staring too long at the tree-line, listening too hard for footsteps that weren't there. David arrived just after sunrise with 2 thermoses of coffee and a box of wrenches. He didn't ask questions, didn't tiptoe around the weight in my eyes. He just got to work. That kind of silence, solid, unjudging, it was a gift. He replaced the hinges on the front gate and tightened the lock on the chicken coop, as if it mattered more now than it ever had. "Shouldn't leave the barn open at night," he muttered, half to himself. I nodded. I hadn't realized I'd been doing that, forgetting the simplest tasks, the ones Sam never missed. Andrew stayed close to me that morning. He'd become extra quiet since the letter. Not afraid exactly, but watchful. He followed me from the porch to the barn and back, clutching his stuffed dinosaur under one arm like a secret weapon. I kept smiling for him, though my stomach remained tight as a fist. I hadn't told him about the letter. How could I? How do you tell a child who just learned to trust again that the world might pull the rug out from under him all over? That night I woke up with a start. Not from a dream, but from a sound. A soft crack outside the window. The kind of sound you might miss if you were asleep or half asleep, or if your heart wasn't already hammering in your chest like it was trying to warn you of something. I slipped out of bed and crept to the window. The moon was high and silver, casting long shadows across the fields. Everything looked normal, except for one thing. The front gate. I'd watched David lock it with his own hands earlier. Now it swung open lazily as though someone had passed through. I stood there for several long seconds, cold sinking into my bones. Then I moved fast. I checked Andrew's room first. He was sound asleep, little arms sprawled, face peaceful. I locked his window from the inside, then moved through the house, making sure every door was sealed, every curtain drawn. I even checked the basement, something Sam used to do when he was still alive, before whispering, "All clear, soldier," and kissing my forehead. I didn't sleep after that. The next morning I called Sheriff Lane. "I'm not saying I saw anyone," I explained, pacing the kitchen while Andrew watched cartoons in the other room. "But the gate was definitely open. I double-checked it. David even locked it himself." There was a pause on the line, followed by a tired sigh. "You have cameras installed out there?" "No." "Then it's your word versus the wind, Emma. I can drive by later tonight if that'd help." "That would help a lot," I admitted. After we hung up, I scribbled a note on the back of a grocery receipt. Security cameras. Deadbolts. Floodlights. I couldn't afford any of them. Not with Andrew's court fees looming, not with a hospital bill still breathing down my neck from his last pediatric surgery consult. But it didn't matter anymore. Safety was no longer optional. It was survival. David came by again that afternoon. I showed him the gate. "You think it was her?" he asked. "I don't know. But she's watching. I can feel it." He stared out over the fields, jaw tight. "You need a dog." "What?" "There's Daisy. A real farm dog. Big, loud, proactive. My cousin's lab just had pups. I'll ask around. Someone's bound to have one they need to rehome." I nodded, touched by how quickly he always moved towards solutions. Sam had been like that too. More hands than words. I wondered if that was what drew me to David now. The familiar comfort of a man who didn't shy away from fixing what was broken. So it made me feel guilty. Like I was betraying something by leaning on someone else. That night, while Andrew slept upstairs and David finished patching the barn roof, I stood by the porch with a flashlight in one hand and Sam's old rifle in the other. Just holding it made me feel steadier. Not safer, but less helpless. The stars overhead glittered coldly. Crickets chirped in the tall grass. Somewhere in the distance a branch snapped. I clicked the flashlight on and shone it toward the trees. Nothing. But I could feel her. Waiting. Whatever game she thought she was playing, she'd underestimated me. I wasn't just a grieving widow anymore. I was a mother now. And I was ready to fight. The call came just as I was scrubbing the mud off Andrew's boots. I had left them outside overnight and he'd marched right through the puddles like a miniature soldier this morning. He thought it was hilarious. I did not. My phone vibrated on the kitchen counter, skittering across the wood like it had something urgent to say. When I saw the name, my heart paused. Ruth. I hadn't heard from my sister since the day of Sam's funeral. Or rather, the day she didn't show up. Emma. Her voice came through firm and full of breath like she'd run to catch the call. Hey, I just got off a field job in Bogota. I called Mom and she told you? I said flatly. There was a pause. She said Sam had a kid. That he hid it from you. And that the child's living with you now. I closed my eyes. My hand clenched tighter around the muddy boot. His name is Andrew. I figured you'd tell me yourself, Ruth said quietly. I'm sorry I wasn't there. You know how this job is. But I'm coming now. Tomorrow. I'm flying into town. I'll take a car straight to the farm. I didn't answer at first. The silence between us was heavy with years of history and unspoken things. I want to meet him, she added, softer now. And I want to help you, Em. Mom said the boy's mother has resurfaced. That she's trying to get him back. I opened my eyes and exhaled. Yes. And she's not just trying. She's watching. I had the guest room ready by the time Ruth pulled into the gravel driveway the next evening in a dusty rental sedan. Andrew stood beside me on the porch, half hidden behind my leg, clutching his favorite book like a shield. Ruth stepped out of the car, looking like someone who'd lived a dozen lives since we'd last shared a cup of coffee. Her hair was darker than I remembered, chin-length and severe, her pants creased, her button-down stained with travel. But her eyes, sharp, penetrating, those were the same. You must be Andrew, she said gently, crouching down to meet him at eye level. He gave her a quiet nod. I'm your Aunt Ruth. You know what journalists do. He shook his head. Well, she said, smiling, we ask a lot of questions and never take no for an answer. That got a half smile out of him. I felt my shoulders drop just a little. Later that night, after Andrew had gone to bed and David had headed back to his trailer, Ruth and I sat on the porch with steaming mugs of chamomile tea and a folder she had placed beside her chair. I've been reading everything I could find on Leona, Andrew's mother, Ruth began. She has a juvenile record. Petty theft. Substance charges. Nothing recent, but that's not always an indicator of stability. She showed up here, I told her. Left a letter in my mailbox. Claimed she gave Sam an ultimatum years ago. Said he left with Andrew and never looked back. Ruth nodded slowly. She's gearing up to make a case. That letter was a breadcrumb. She's laying a trail, trying to rattle you. She's doing more than that. I looked out into the night, past the porch light, past the trees. She's been on the property. I know it. The gate's been opened. Footprints in the mud. It's like she's toying with me. Ruth's jaw tightened. Then it's time we stop playing defense. She reached into her bag and pulled out a voice recorder and a small notebook. We start documenting everything. Time, date, incidents. And I'm going to reach out to a friend at a family court review board. Off the record for now. If this turns into a legal battle, we'll need character affidavits, school records, medical documents, everything. For the first time in weeks, I felt something solid beneath my feet. Like I wasn't standing on cracked ground anymore. I hadn't heard from Millis Carter, the lawyer, in a while. I'm glad you're here, I whispered. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're not alone. Not anymore. I had not told her about Millis, who is expected to be of great help. That night, Ruth slept in the guest room, her suitcase still half-zipped on the floor. I passed Andrew's room on my way to bed and found him sleeping soundly, arms wrapped around his dinosaur, the nightlight casting soft blue halos on the wall. Downstairs the porch creaked. I paused, heart jumping, then crept to the front window and peeked out. Nothing. Just shadows. But the gate. It was open again. I didn't sleep. I kept the porch light on all night like a lighthouse for ghosts. And I sat on the old swing chair with Sam's rifle propped up beside me. I didn't even remember loading it. Maybe I hadn't. I wasn't sure I would have fired if someone had come up the path. By dawn, the gate was still open, swaying gently in the morning wind like it was trying to lure something in, or keep something out. I waited until the sun touched the line of oaks near the far pasture before picking up the phone. Sheriff Lane's number was already in my recents. That fact alone made my skin crawl. He answered on the second ring. Emma. The gate was open again, I said, skipping hello. My voice was gravelly from fatigue. No one saw it. No camera caught it. And I know I locked it. I know I did. There was a pause. Okay, he said carefully, the way people talk when they're not sure if you're fraying or just fed up. You want me to come out again? No, I said. I want you to do something. I want this woman found. I want her warned. Arrested if necessary. She's violating boundaries and there's a child involved. I understand, Emma. And I take it seriously, I do. But unless she enters your home or physically threatens you or Andrew. So trespassing doesn't count now? Only if we can prove it's her. I let out a long breath, pinched the bridge of my nose. I need help, Lane. Not theories. I'll stop by this afternoon, he offered. Do another perimeter check. Maybe bring a trail camera. Bring two, I snapped and hung up. Inside, Ruth had already brewed coffee and was finishing Andrew's lunch. She moved like she'd always belonged in my kitchen, somehow both precise and chaotic, juggling buttered toast, carrot sticks and phone calls without blinking. Andrew sat at the table swinging his legs, hair still tousled, cheeks sticky with strawberry jam. I told him you were up all night protecting the house like a cowboy, Ruth said with a wink. I didn't even crack a smile. You should get some sleep, she added more gently this time. I've got to drop off today. You rest. Regroup. Andrew slipped off his chair and came to hug me, tiny arms looping around my waist. Can Aunt Ruth come back and help with math again later? I smoothed his hair. Only if she doesn't give you all the answers. No promises, Ruth said, grabbing the keys. I watched them through the window as they walked toward the car. Ruth reached down to help Andrew with his seatbelt, then handed him a juice box like she'd been doing this all his life. My throat tightened. He was starting to trust her. And God help me, I needed that. But the gate. Wide open again. By noon I was pacing. Sheriff Lane showed up in his usual unhurried way, hat in hand, brown uniform crisp as ever. He planted 2 trail cams, one on the fence facing the back pasture, another pointed at the long driveway near the gate. We walked the property line again, our boots crunching across dry leaves and gravel. No tire tracks, he muttered. No boot prints this time either. Could be a kid pulling a prank, but it's remote out here. And Liana, she's not known for subtlety. What if she's not alone? I asked. That stopped him. What makes you say that? I don't know. Instinct. Something about how careful she's being. It feels calculated. Lane gave me a long look. I'll run a scan. See if she's got any known associates. But I've got to warn you, Emma, even if we do catch her on the property, it's still a gray area unless she does more than just open a gate. What if that's just the beginning? I whispered. When Ruth returned with Andrew after school, I could tell by the way Ruth slammed the car door that something wasn't right. Andrew had already bounded off to the barn to find David, his little backpack bouncing on his shoulders. Ruth walked up the porch steps like she was carrying a time bomb, her jaw tight, the wind tugging strands of her hair out of place. She called the school, she said flatly. My stomach dropped. Who? Ruth stared at me, her eyes flickering with disbelief. Liana. She called this morning. Used your name. Claimed she was his mother. Said she needed to confirm Andrew's medical records and asked if anything had changed on his emergency contacts. I sat down hard on the bench by the door. You're sure? She gave your full name. Emma Riley Bennett. Said she had a sore throat so they wouldn't ask too many questions. The only reason they flagged it was because the school nurse found the voice odd, and I just happened to be there, updating the forms. I closed my eyes, a cold pressure building behind them. She's getting bolder, Ruth continued. And smarter. She's laying down a foundation. If she ever manages to get temporary custody or even visitation, she'll already have notes in the school system that she called as the mother. I didn't respond. Emma, she said more softly now. What aren't you telling me? I let out a breath. The truth was a weight I had held too tightly for too long. I should have told you this days ago. She crossed her arms. Told me what? I've already got a lawyer, I said. His name is Millis Carter. He's been working on the adoption papers and building a defense in case Liana tries to take Andrew back legally. Ruth blinked, stunned. A lawyer? You've been dealing with this legally for how long? Since the first time she left that letter, I replied. She wasn't just threatening to come back. He was planning it. Millis says people like her, people with a record with a past like hers, they usually don't win custody. But that doesn't mean they won't try. Or that the system won't wobble if she presses the right levers. Ruth sat down beside me, the silence between us stretching uncomfortably. Why didn't you tell me? She asked at last. I looked at her, tears stinging. Because I didn't want to make it real. The second I said it out loud, it would stop being just a threat and turn into a war. I was still hoping this whole thing could just go away. Ruth shook her head slowly. Emma, you're in the middle of a battle whether you admit it or not. And this woman? She's not going away. She's pressing herself into your life. Into Andrew's life. I know, I whispered. And this Millis Carter? She asked. What's he like? I offered a faint smile. Smart. Focused. No nonsense. He doesn't waste words. But he cares, especially about kids who get left behind. Then we need him more than ever. Later that afternoon I called Millis. He picked up on the second ring. Emma, he said, his voice always calm like stone under pressure. Everything all right? No, I said. She called the school. Used my name. Tried to get access to Andrew's records. He didn't even pause. Have them note the impersonation in their system and report it to the district. I'll send you a formal statement to file with them. She's already crossed a legal boundary. This gives us leverage. Can we do anything else? I'll update the affidavit with this incident and fast-track the protective order. But Emma, if she's using your name, she's not just bluffing anymore. She's preparing a case. We need to be ready. I know, I said, glancing out the window to where Andrew and David were tossing pebbles at an old tin can near the fence. I'm ready now. I'll come by this weekend, Miles said. I'll bring the new paperwork and we'll start preparing your statement. When I hung up, Ruth was waiting just inside the kitchen, arms crossed. Good, she said. Let's find out who this woman really is. I raised an eyebrow. You mean more than what we already know? Ruth smirked. I'm a journalist, Em. What the law can't dig up, I will. And just like that, the fear inside me began to shift. It didn't disappear, not completely, but now it stood shoulder to shoulder with something stronger. Resolve. The morning air was thick with dew, the kind that clings to your skin like a whisper. I stood in the kitchen sipping lukewarm coffee, trying to gather the energy to take on another day of invisible battles. Outside, the mist curled around the edges of the barn like smoke from a dream I couldn't quite remember. Ruth was already pacing the living room, earbuds in, muttering notes into her phone recorder. I recognized that glint in her eyes, the one that appeared whenever she was hunting something down. It was comforting in a strange way to see her like this again. In her element. Fierce. Unrelenting. Andrew was upstairs, still dressing, while David had gone out early to check the irrigation lines behind the east pasture. Then I saw it, an envelope sticking awkwardly out of our front gate. I knew before I even opened it that it wouldn't be good. That's the thing about grief and fear. They sharpen your instincts like a blade. I pulled it free with shaking hands and saw my name, scrawled in tight, sharp ink across the front. Emma Riley. No postage. Hand-delivered. Ruth, I called without looking up. You need to see this. She was by my side in a moment. Another letter? No. Not like before. We stood there on the porch as I peeled it open. Inside was a single page neatly folded. I unfolded it carefully, every inch of me bracing for something venomous. Dear Ms. Riley, please be advised that a preliminary custody hearing regarding the minor child, Andrew Bennett, has been scheduled at the Hartsville Family Court on the 22nd of this month. The petitioner, Ms. Liana Langston, is seeking partial custody and visitation rights. You are required to appear. Failure to do so may result in a default judgment. Respectfully, Fulton and Price, attorneys at law. I read the words twice before they settled in my chest like stones. My ears were ringing and for a second I couldn't breathe. She's lawyering up, Ruth whispered. God, she actually found a firm to represent her? I nodded numb. Fulton and Price. That's downtown. Expensive. Reputable. She must have found someone willing to back her. Someone with deep pockets. I looked up at her. She doesn't have money. Then someone else is funding her. It wasn't just paranoia. Ruth had seen it in her work before. Quiet manipulations, hidden hands financing the chaos from the shadows. We weren't just fighting Liana now. We were fighting whoever was pulling her strings. Ruth took the letter from me, scanned it again, then snapped a photo with her phone. I'm calling Miles. He needs to see this. I nodded. He said he'd come this weekend. Ruth gave a short nod, then disappeared back into the house to send the message. That afternoon I sat with Andrew on the porch swing while he played with his toy tractor. oblivious to the storm building around him. "Mom," he said softly, "can we go to the fair this year? Like Daddy used to take me?" The word Daddy made my throat tighten. I nodded, brushing his curls back gently. "Of course, sweetheart. We'll go. We'll get the biggest cotton candy they've got." He smiled, his eyes lighting up. For now he was still safe inside the world I was fighting to hold together. Inside, Ruth was digging. She had pulled up everything she could find on Fulton and Price. Partners, cases, political ties. Then she started on Leona Langston again. She found a sealed case from 5 years ago. Juvenile services. The kind of thing that hinted at deeper trouble but stopped short of telling you what you needed to know. "There's someone behind this," Ruth muttered, flipping through court records like tarot cards. "Leona's too scattered to orchestrate this alone. Someone wants Andrew, or maybe they just want to destroy you." I felt a chill ripple across my skin. Not because she was wrong, but because she might be right. At sundown, I walked the property line with David, needing the calm of his presence. He didn't say much, he never did when my mind was loud, but as we passed the gate where I found the envelope, he paused. "You're not alone in this," he said quietly. "I know," I whispered. But the truth was, I felt like the walls were closing in. Leona was back, armed with lawyers. A court date was set. And a child I loved like my own was about to become the center of a custody war I wasn't sure we were prepared for. So, I had Ruth sharp as a blade. Miles steady and strategic. David unwavering. And Andrew, whose laughter was still the sound I woke up for. Let the storm come. I was done flinching. Enough for now. Part 3 will kick off from where we left off.